I'm going to start by reassembling the diaphragm. This plate, the retainer plate, one side is dead flat. The dead flat side goes upwards. I'm hoping this will fit my jig. It does. And now I can put the blades in place. The blades I've carefully arranged so they're all facing the same way as I pick them up. The rivets that are closer to the edge of the blade are facing upwards. The rivets that are closer towards the centre of the blade go downwards. If you mix them up, you'll end up with an aperture that is not circular. It'll be anything but circular. If you get them all the same, but the wrong way round, you'll end up with an aperture that, if it moves correctly, will not match the settings correctly. So if you think that you're getting an F8, you might find that you're not getting an F8, you're getting F11 or F5.6. So it's important that they get put back all the same way and all correctly. Diaphragm blades are interleaved. They do not just go one on top of the other like shutter blades. When you get round to the point where the blades are covering the holes to where you need to put on the next blade, you've got to pull back the first blades to allow you to get the last blade in. And of course you have to do this without disturbing the earlier blades, because you do not want their pivots coming out of the plate. This is something that gets easier with practice, but it takes patience. It's not uncommon to have to do this 2 or more times before you're successful. Right, that's the last blade in place. Now I've got to lift the earlier blades back over the top. Without disturbing anything. Swing them back towards the jig. And put the moving plate in place. This one. And you've got to get everything correctly placed. I'm just checking my case. That's correct. Lower this over those studs, those rivets. The jig was just a little bit too wide. These blades are being held out a little bit, and I've just got to pull them into line without losing anything. It's looking promising. One here is not in position. There it is. Some of them are not in place. That's it. They're all sitting in position. Now I can lower my case over the top. If I flip this over, I should have my diaphragm all assembled. I've got to line up the screw holes in the case. There they are. And I've got 3 small screws. I just run the screws up, do not do them up tight. If one of the blades is out of place and you do the screws up tight, you'll end up damaging something. So the screws just need to be run up until they hit the plate, basically. Flip this over and check that when I move the moving plate, the diaphragm gives us a good circular opening, no blades are left behind, nothing egg shaped. Do up our 3 screws. That's good. Now I need to put the setting lever in place. So I've got to line up this hole here with the hole in the plate so that I can put the screws through like that. Take my setting lever and the 2 screws. Now I happen to know that the setting lever was fairly firm. So I'm just going to rub a little bit of molybdenum paste on that face. And molybdenum paste, when you're using it, you just need to leave a dirty mark really. It doesn't need any more than that. And once round the centre for good measure. And I know it goes this way up. So I've got to line up the holes with the lever. Where are we? Oh, it's right there, okay, right there. Get those holes lined up. No, it's not lining up. Why not? I see both. No, I only see one. It's at 180 degrees out. No. What's going on? That's better, I can see both. Drop one of my screws down through there. Hopefully it'll pick up the plate. It did. I'm supporting this from underneath with my fingers to stop that plate from falling away. The adjustment lever. Run that screw up, check that it moves smoothly, and it does. That's good. I can tighten those screws up. I'll support that on a piece of wood. Tighten up both screws. And that's the diaphragm. That's our aperture diaphragm all sorted out. Moves nice and smoothly. It's not loose. You don't want it to be loose because you don't want it losing its settings easily, but it's nice and smooth. It's good. That's our shutter case ready to be reassembled. Put that to one side. Alright, the mechanism plate's all clean. I just cleaned that with some naphtha. Flushed both speed trains with naphtha. Also flushed the little pallets down here for the flash sync speed. Got it well soaked, worked the naphtha in, blew the naphtha out with a blower, and it's all ready to go. Blade actuating ring, that's all clean, ready to go. It's got a post on the upper surface that picks up the lever. That drops through this slot here. The retainer plate, you want the pin side up here. It only goes one place, one direction in here. It's held with 3 screws. The long screw was here by the self timer or delay action. The other 2 positions had short screws. These screws are typically held in place with a little bit of some sort of magic lacquer or Loctite, so they can be reluctant to come unscrewed. So be prepared for that. Make sure that your screwdriver is in good condition before you unscrew them. Keep plenty of downward pressure on your screwdriver so that it does not cam out and damage the screws, and you'll be fine. That's good, that's moving smoothly. The lever. This is the lever on the top of the mechanism plate that operates that blade actuating ring. So I've put a smear of molybdenum paste on the pivot, and in the fork where it couples to the pin on the blade actuating ring, I just run a smear in there. You need very little. You're just leaving a dirty mark and no more. Held with a single screw. I'll check that moves smoothly. It does. Hook its spring back over there. That's return spring. Check that when I flick it, it's prompt in its action. That's good. That all appears fine. I'm just going to lubricate the mechanism plate with a bit of graphite powder. I don't use any grease or anything like that to lubricate the mechanism plate. Grease has a habit of drying out or going sticky over time, and that's the least of its problems. The other useful thing that grease often does is it'll lose its volatile components, which rush away to settle on shutter blades and other places you don't want them. So I'll just work a bit of graphite powder in there. That's all that's required. And I'll do the same for the speed drains. Just drop a bit on there. I just do that over this container so that I don't, I'm not losing lots of graphite powder all the time. Hold back the pallets with my finger at this end of the speed drain. Work the lever backwards and forwards. Just to work that little bit of graphite powder in there, and then we're going to blow it all away. You're looking for very little here, you're just looking for a little bit of graphite through there is usually quite good. I'll just roll this mechanism over. This is our self timer or delay action. It runs smoothly, that's good. There's quite a strong spring works, that self timer. That's the main drive spring for the shutter. I'm just going to go and blow this powder out. That's all blown out, that's ready to go. Unhook the return spring from here, swing that arm out so that the shutter is in the blade's open position. And my blades, I've got them cleaned and sitting here ready to go back on. And I start at this position. Have I got that round the right way? Yes. Now I'm just looking at that blade. I think that's blade 5 actually. This is blade 1. Blade 1, the tip of it is bent downwards. We start assembling our blades at this position. The blades go on anti-clockwise. Blades 2, 3 and 4 are all the same, they're all dead flat. Blades 1 and 5 have the tip is slightly bent up, and 1 and 5 the tip is bent up in opposite directions. That's blade 5, the tip is bent upwards, and blade 1 the tip was bent downwards. So that's correct, that's our shutter assembly there, correctly assembled. Right, be patient while I find my bearings. I've been away in Tasmania for the last 2 weeks, or most of it, so I'm just getting back to this task. It should be exactly where I left it. Shutter's all ready to close in the case. Just check that all the screws that should be tight are tight. That looks good. Now to put the outer case back over the mechanism plate, I'm just lining up the holes. 2 holes here are close together so I can find those on the plate. And they are here and here. So I know I've got to get my shutter case over at that point. Check that the screw holes are lined up. They are. And then there are 4 screws that hold the case, the shutter case and the mechanism plate together. So I'll put 2 screws in, more or less opposite each other. Run those down lightly, I won't do them up tight. Flip the shutter over and check that the blades open and close smoothly, and they do. So we can hook our spring back over there and back in here now, and put the other two screws in place and tighten them up. If there'd been any reluctance of the blades to move, it would have been a signal that something was displaced. It's not uncommon that one of the blades will shift when you're getting the shutter case back over the mechanism plate, particularly if you're not practiced at that, and you may not pick that that's happened. That's why it's important not to do the screws up tight until you're sure that everything is in place. Otherwise you'll end up with a blade damaged. That's all moving nice and smoothly. That looks good. There's a residual mark there on one shutter blade. That's not significant. They look good. Now to assemble the flash sink gear. Starting here by putting the flash sink post back in place. Pardon my grubby fingers, I've just been out in the garden. This is held in place with a single screw, which in this case is blackened brass. You may find that the screw on your shutter is polished brass or even nickel plated brass. Have the spring that looks after the highest speed, the 500th of a second speed. I just put a smear of molybdenum paste in that and drop that into place. Our flash contact, the moving flash contact goes here, and there's a spacer that sits on top of that. And if you look closely, you'll see that the contact loops up towards the outside of the case, so it's between the fixed contact here and the outside of the case. That's where the loop of the flash contact goes. This component, this little cam needs to go in. I'm just going to wipe the outside edge of that with a bit of molybdenum paste. That drops into place in there. Just getting rid of a thread of cotton there. That couples with the little pinion here on that pallet wheel. Now we've got to get the position of this correct, and from memory it sits about like that, but I'll check that shortly. See what else I need to fit at this stage. And it's this lever. There's a spring on this lever that has to hook over a hook visible here. It's quite tricky to get that in place from memory. We have to have this timed correctly with a pinion on here that we can achieve. First I want to get my spring hooked over there. Next I need to get my timing correct at this point. Now this little arm is sprung loaded. Comes back to a rest position against the body. I'm just checking the included angle at this point. That looks correct. I'll just check and make sure I've got that exactly right. There's a spacer that goes in here, and that spacer supports this plate. The other end of that plate is supported on that spacer on the flash contact. Now getting this plate back in place is entertaining. Our flash contact arm has to go over the arm of this lever here. I might try putting in the flash contact after I've got that in place, see if that works. See if I can get the flash contact down into position. Yeah, it's fun. It doesn't seem to want to go. Alright, let's try it with the flash contact in first. One of those tasks where you need about 4 pairs of hands. That part's in place. Can I get this spring in place? That's in place. Can I get this plate in place? That's in place. Now, there's a fixing screw goes through here. That's a countersunk head screw. I'll just run that down very lightly because this arm is tucked underneath there at the moment. Needs to come out. That screw runs down through the plate, through the brass spacer and into the mechanism plate. Now if I pull that lever forward, yes, it just clicked into place. I'll run that screw down a little bit further. That's good. At this end, is everything settled in place? No, this lever is certainly jammed behind something. That's better. Oh, my flash contact is out of position here. It's on the wrong side of that post. That won't help. That's better. It's done it again. I'll temporarily run the screw in there and check that that pulls down flat. The driver doesn't want to fit that one. Let's try this one. It's sitting, moves freely. That looks free. That looks good. Let's run that screw down a bit more. And this screw, I'm just poking and prodding here to make sure that everything is sitting flush and flat and even and appears to do its job. That looks good. So I can remove this screw again now and put the flash sync lever in place and its return spring.